I never imagined that the happiest day of my life would also be the beginning of the biggest lie I had ever lived through. That morning, I woke up early. Not because I was nervous, but because my daughter had climbed into bed with me before sunrise. She was 3 years old, and she was more excited than anyone else. She kept repeating in her tiny, happy voice, "Mommy, today is the pretty dress day." I remember looking at her and smiling. In that moment, everything felt right. Everything felt exactly where it belonged. I was marrying the man I believed would be the father of my family, the man I pictured beside me for years to come, the man I dreamed of building a home with, full of life, children running down the hallway, simple and happy Sundays. I truly believed I was starting a new chapter. The ceremony was simple, nothing extravagant, but it was exactly the way I wanted it. My family was there, a few close friends, and my daughter, running around the venue with a kind of joy that seemed too big for her little body. When she walked in holding the rings, everyone laughed. She almost dropped one, and he, my husband, bent down to help her. In that moment, I thought, this is it. This is the life I want. I remember the look in his eyes when he took my hand at the altar. He looked emotional. He looked sincere. And when he said, "I do," I felt like I was making the right choice. I truly believed I was building something real, something strong, something that would last. In the days after the wedding, I felt light, like life was finally falling into place. We had already been through hard moments before, but it felt like now everything had changed. He was different, more present, more affectionate, more attentive to me, more patient with our daughter, and I thought maybe marriage had done that to him. Maybe fully stepping into our family had awakened some new sense of responsibility in him. I wanted to believe that, and maybe I believed it too much. A few weeks later, news came that changed everything. I found out I was pregnant. I remember that moment exactly. I was sitting on the bathroom floor, staring at the test in my hands. My heart was beating fast. But it wasn't fear. It was emotion. It was hope. I walked out of the bathroom almost shaking and showed it to him. He held me tightly. He said it was the best thing that could have happened to us. And in that moment, I felt like our family was complete. A little girl, a baby on the way, a brand new marriage. It felt like the perfect beginning. For months, I lived believing I was in the most beautiful season of my life. I trusted him. I trusted our story. I trusted the life we were building, and maybe that was exactly why it took me so long to realize something was wrong. Because when you love someone, you do not want to go looking for problems. You want to believe, you want to trust, you want to protect what seems to be working. And that is what I did. I trusted, I defended our marriage, I ignored the small signs, I ignored things that, looking back now, seem obvious. But back then, I just wanted to believe everything was okay. Until one day, when I was already 6 months pregnant, the truth showed up in front of me. A truth that completely changed the way I looked at my wedding day. Because the problem had not started later. It had not started months after the wedding. It had not started when my marriage began to cool off. The truth was far worse than that. The truth was that while I was walking down the aisle in my white dress, while my daughter was smiling and holding those rings, while I was saying "I do," believing I was beginning a new life, something was already happening. Something I would only discover much later. And when I found out, it felt like that entire day had been a lie hidden so well that it took months to finally collapse in front of me. After the wedding, life slipped back into its normal rhythm. No huge changes, no luxury, no movie-perfect moments. It was a simple life, and at the time, it was exactly what I wanted. Our apartment was small but cozy. The living room opened into the kitchen, and our daughter's room was at the end of the hallway. Every morning, the alarm went off before 6. I always got up first. I made coffee, packed our daughter's school bag. Meanwhile, he stayed in bed for a few more minutes, trying to wake up slowly. It was an ordinary routine, the kind that feels unimportant while you are living it. But looking back now, those were the moments I believed were part of something solid. My daughter was 3 and full of energy. She woke up talking, singing, asking 1,000 questions at once. Sometimes she would run through the living room holding a toy while I was trying to finish making breakfast, and he would watch her with a smile. Back then, that felt like family. It felt like stability. It felt like safety. He left for work around 7, always in a rush, always promising he would be home early, and I handled dropping our daughter off at preschool before heading to work myself. Our life was not perfect, but it felt honest. It felt real. And maybe that was exactly what made me let my guard down so completely. Because when everyday life feels calm, you do not imagine something could be happening behind it. A few weeks after the wedding, something unexpected happened. I started feeling off, tired, nauseous in the mornings. At first I thought it was stress, or maybe just exhaustion from everything. But a coworker said something that stayed with me. "Have you thought about the fact that you might be pregnant?" I laughed. At first it sounded impossible, but that same afternoon on my way home, I bought a test at the pharmacy. I told no one, not even him. I wanted to be sure first. When I got home, our daughter was in the living room playing with dolls. He had not made it home from work yet. I went into the bathroom by myself, closed the door, and waited. Those were some of the longest minutes of my life. My heart was racing. When I looked at the test, there were 2 lines. I just stood there staring at it, not knowing exactly what I felt. It was not fear. It was not worry. It was surprise, mixed with something that felt a lot like hope. I took several deep breaths before I came out of the bathroom. By the time he got home that night, I had already decided to tell him. He walked through the door, dropped his bag on the couch, and asked, like he always did, "How was your day?" I did not answer right away. I just placed the test in his hand. It took him a few seconds to understand. He looked at me, then at the test, and then he smiled, a smile that at the time felt sincere. He held me tightly, said it was a blessing, said our family was growing, said now everything made even more sense. Our daughter did not fully understand what was happening, but she was happy simply because we were happy. That night, we sat on the couch talking about the future, about the baby, about what life would be like with 2 children. And I remember thinking that this was exactly the life I had always wanted. A marriage, a family, children growing up together, a simple home, but full of love. During the first months of my pregnancy, he seemed even more present, more loving, more careful with me. He asked if I was tired, if I needed help, if I had eaten enough. Sometimes he came home with something small, chocolate, a fruit I had mentioned craving. Those little things felt like proof that he really was changing, that maybe the responsibility of having a family was transforming him. And I wanted to believe that. I really did. Because after everything we had already been through, I wanted to believe we had finally found balance. I believed our marriage was getting stronger. I believed our family was becoming more solid. I believed that this baby was coming at exactly the right time. But now, looking back, I can see that some things were already beginning to change. Small details, almost invisible ones, things I did not want to see at the time, because when you are happy, you do not want to look for problems. You would rather believe everything is fine. And that is exactly what I did. I chose to believe, without realizing that, in that very moment, something was already starting to slip through my fingers. In the first months of my pregnancy, I felt strangely calm, maybe calmer than I should have been. I was tired almost every day. Pregnancy, work, the house, a small child, all of that weighs on you. But at the same time, I felt like something between us had gotten better. He seemed more present. He came home and asked how I was doing, asked about the baby, asked about our daughter. Sometimes he even washed the dishes before I asked. Simple things, but back then they felt important. I remember thinking more than once, maybe he's finally grown up. Maybe marriage did this to him. Maybe the idea of having 2 children woke something up in him. And honestly, I wanted to believe that. I wanted to very badly. Because for a long time, I had been afraid our relationship would not survive the difficulties of life. But in that moment, it felt different. It felt like we were finally finding balance. He started showing affection in ways he had not before. He hugged me more, asked if I was tired, sometimes came home earlier, and it made me feel safe. Our daughter was in such a sweet phase too. She talked to my belly, said she wanted to teach the baby how to play, asked if the baby could already hear her, and he would watch that scene with a smile. It was hard to imagine anything could be wrong when life felt that simple. But now I know some changes started during that time. Small changes, almost invisible. Things I did not notice then. Or maybe I noticed them and chose to ignore them. One of them was his phone. Before he left it anywhere, on the table, on the couch, in the kitchen. But suddenly he started carrying it everywhere, even into the shower. At first I thought nothing of it. I told myself I was imagining things. Then I noticed something else. He started placing it face down every time he set it on a table, always, without exception. It was an automatic gesture, quick, almost unconscious. And it started to bother me a little. It was not proof of anything, but it was different. Another thing that changed was the way he answered certain messages. Sometimes his phone would buzz, and he would glance at the screen quickly before replying. Other times, he ignored it, but he answered later, when he thought I was not looking. At the time, I tried to rationalize it. I told myself it could be work, or a group chat with friends, or anything unimportant, because when you trust someone, you do not want to turn every detail into suspicion. You would rather believe, and I did believe, even when little signs started to appear. Some days he came home later than usual, said he had gotten stuck at work, or had to stop somewhere on the way home. Nothing outrageous, nothing impossible, but some of his explanations felt too vague, like there was a missing piece. I asked, he answered, and then the subject died there. I did not push, because at that stage of my life, I was focused on other things: the baby, our daughter, the house, the routine. I believed our marriage was getting better, and maybe that was exactly why it took me so long to understand what was happening. Because when you are happy, you do not go looking for problems. You protect what seems to be working. You avoid digging into doubts. And that is exactly what I did. I ignored the small signs, ignored the strange details, ignored the odd feeling that sometimes rose in the back of my chest. A light feeling, almost like a silent warning, but I always pushed it away with the same thought. It's probably nothing. Because I trusted him, trusted our story, trusted the family we were building. And at that point in my life, the last thing I imagined was that everything we were building already stood on top of a lie that would still take months to show itself. And when it finally did, it would completely change the way I remembered every moment of that marriage. As I was moving into my 5th month of pregnancy, a few things started to shift. Nothing major, nothing that could be called proof. But there were details, small things that started happening one after another. And even though I did not want to admit it back then, something inside me was growing uneasy. The first thing happened on an ordinary afternoon. I had left work early to pick up our daughter from preschool. She was tired that day and fell asleep in the car on the way home. When I got to the building, I ran into a neighbor in the elevator. We usually exchanged a few quick words, nothing more. But that day, she commented on something that, at the time, just seemed mildly odd. She said, "Your husband was here earlier today, right?" I frowned. "Earlier?" She answered casually, "Yeah, I saw him coming into the building in the early afternoon." That stayed in my head, because he had told me he would be at work all day. I did not confront anyone right then. I did not say anything. Maybe he had come home to grab something. Maybe that was all. But it was the first moment when something did not quite add up. That night, when he got home, I asked casually, "Did you stop by the apartment today?" He answered quickly. Too quickly. "No, I was at work all day." I went quiet. Maybe he had forgotten. Maybe my neighbor was mistaken. Maybe I was overthinking it. That is what I tried to believe, but the feeling did not go away. A few days later, the second thing happened. I was on the couch sorting through some bills when his phone buzzed on the coffee table. He was in the shower. I did not pick it up, but the screen lit up, and for a second I saw part of a message. It was enough to make something inside me tighten. The message said, "Do you still remember that day?" There was no name, just a number. In that moment I felt something strange, not certainty, more like a quiet sense of alarm, a small warning, but I pushed it away. Because when you trust someone, you always try to find a reasonable explanation. When he came out of the shower, the phone screen was dark again. I did not mention it, but that night, for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep with a heavy feeling in my chest. A few weeks later, the third thing happened, and that was the one that really began to open my eyes. I was at work when a coworker called me over to show me something on her phone. It was a social media photo from a restaurant in town, just a normal picture, nothing special. But in the background, there was someone sitting at a table, and that person looked a lot like him. The photo was taken from far away, but I recognized the shirt. It was a shirt I had bought for him myself. The caption read, "Special lunch with people I love." I tried zooming in, but I could not see clearly enough. Still, that image stayed with me, because at that exact time, he had told me he was in an important meeting at work. That night I watched him differently. I did not say anything, did not confront him, but I started noticing things I had ignored before. The way he kept his phone out of sight, the way he answered messages away from me, the vague way he talked about his day. Small things, things that by themselves meant nothing, but together, they started forming a strange pattern. And that was when something shifted inside me. It was not certainty yet, more like a quiet question that started appearing in my mind. A question I kept trying to push away whenever it came, because thinking about it hurt. And I was pregnant. I wanted peace. I wanted to believe my family was safe. But the more time passed, the more that feeling returned. Like a silent warning. Like something was trying to show me that I was not seeing the whole story. And looking back now, I realized those were the first real signs, the signs that something far bigger was hidden behind the life I believed I was living. But back then, I still had no idea how big the lie really was. Because the truth had not started weeks before. It had started long before that. Long before the pregnancy. Long before the messages. Long before those hidden lunches. The truth had started the day I put on that white dress, the day I said, "I do," and I had no idea. After those small signs, something inside me changed. It was not paranoia. It was not baseless suspicion. It was more like a quiet part of me had woken up, a silent part that started observing everything more carefully. And still, I did not want to believe the worst, because when you are pregnant, when you already have a little daughter, when your whole life is built around that relationship, the last thing you want is to discover that everything may be wrong. For a few weeks, I tried to act the same. Keep the routine going. Take care of the house. Go to work. Get things ready for the baby. But deep down, that feeling did not disappear. If anything, it grew. Until one night, something happened. Something simple. But it opened a door I would never be able to close again. He had gone out to take care of something for work. Our daughter was already asleep, and I was sitting on the couch trying to rest for a little while. My belly was big now, 6 months pregnant. My body was tired. My mind was full. That was when his phone started ringing on the coffee table. He had forgotten it. That never happened. I stared at the phone vibrating. No name came up. Just a number. The call stopped, then a text came in. The screen lit up. I cannot explain exactly what made me look. Maybe it was that unease that had been growing inside me. Maybe it was just curiosity. But in that moment, I looked. The message said, "Are you going to be able to talk tonight, or is she still around?" My chest tightened. I sat there staring at that sentence, feeling something rise through me. A mixture of fear and the sense that I was about to discover something I did not want to know. For a few minutes, I tried to ignore it, told myself it could be anything, work, a friend, a misunderstanding. But something inside me already knew it was not. My hands started shaking. I picked up his phone. The password was still the same password he had used since we first started dating. In a strange way, that felt almost cruel, because it showed how much I had always trusted him. When the phone unlocked, I started looking through the messages. At first, I found nothing. Normal conversations, group chats, work stuff. For a second, I almost felt relieved. Maybe I had been exaggerating. Maybe I had been inventing problems where there were none. But then I noticed something. There was an archived conversation. No name, just a number. When I opened it, my breathing stopped. The messages were old, much older than I expected. Some went back weeks, some months. I started reading slowly. Each line felt heavier than the last. They were not innocent. They were not friendly. And then I saw a date that made my stomach turn. It was the date of our wedding. I read the message several times. Like my brain could not accept